Starfleet Graduate Institute, Department of Xenology, Ensign Sara. Stardate 97355.7.
After transporting to Academy Main Station, I took civilian public transport to my subject's preferred meeting location, a shopping and entertainment complex called Alameda Gathering. I was to meet him in the Food Garden. This turned out to be the entire top level of the 7-story, 409,600 square foot. This is according to the entryway signage. I did not take independent measurements. Structure. Time efficiency problems were avoided simply by using our communicator signals as homing beacons. When I arrived at his table, I could have believed myself subject to a practical joke, in which my subject provided a local adolescent with his wrist comm. The male humanoid before me could not be old enough to have completed his development. As expected, he was a Nalvanan, Service Sapiens, 87% similarity to human genotype. Eyes are solid black, ears are longer, pointed, and somewhat mobile. Unusually strong gender dimorphism. Males have narrow patches of hair along the lower arms and behind the lower legs. They also exhibit hairy vestigial tails that require modification to clothing and uniforms. Both sexes are ungulate herbivores. Humanoid enough to fit in well, perhaps too well, in this environment. I either proceeded with my assignment or played along with the joke by introducing myself and asking if we could begin. With your permission, I have begun recording.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Please state your full name and fleet status.
Orin, son of Loria. Midshipman, 2nd class, Starfleet Academy.
I have a question that was not in my original plan. After that, we will proceed in reverse chronological order from the present. Is that acceptable?
Yes, of course. By the way, I'm 16.472 years of age as of this morning. Earth time.
There is no need to anticipate in this interview, though that is the answer to my question. I presume you've been asked before.
Many times. But I hope to grow out of it.
Your humor is noted, if not strictly relevant. Please describe your entry into the Academy, and, to save time, I am not asking about whether you beamed in or walked.
Well, at 10, I decided to apply to the Academy as early as possible. I completed my undergraduate degree at Nelvanan Interstellar University just after turning 14. My standing at graduation was 3rd in class, double major in space sciences and computer science. I submitted my application with letters of recommendation from just about every member of Starfleet stationed on my world, as well as a matriarch who herself had been an astronaut. Nature intervened at this point, and I found out I was accepted that autumn.
Nature intervened. Were you sick or injured?
Oh, no, ma'am. That's just a translated way of saying I went into my annual rutting cycle. It usually lasts 8 to 12 weeks. All the information on the process is publicly available. We're not all private about it.
I see. You still haven't explained how you got around the minimum age requirement.
Oh, yes. I submitted an explanatory argument along with a request for a 2-year waiver.
And that argument was?
As the average lifespan of a Nalvanan male is only about 2/3 the Federation average for comparable beings.
That is approximately 75 Earth Standard years. For comparison, human males currently average 130 years.
Could it not be assumed that I am literally mature beyond my years? Having completed and survived my first rut nearly 2 years prior to the date of my application, I had, since that time, been considered a legal adult and lived under my own supervision.
I still have difficulty imagining the admissions committee accepting your argument. Most of it is specious. Under your idea of the rule, I calculate that no Vulcan would be allowed to enter until reaching the age of 47.132. The 17-year figure is arbitrary, yes, but considering the plethora of lifespans among the various species, it has to be.
There was one other factor. I learned through back channels that Fleet is trying very hard to recruit male Nelvanans. You see, ma'am, the aforementioned rut cycle has kept bucks.
The deer-like terms Mr. Oren uses are the officially recognized standard translations from his native language. Stag equals a male in rut. Buck is an adult male at all other times. Doe is a female in her fertile years. Matriarch is a term of honor for a postmenopausal female. Interestingly, it confers an increase in social status. Research informs me that until approximately 270 years ago, only such females were allowed to vote. Children are designated boy fawn or girl fawn, an imperfect translation.
It's like my brethren and me from any responsible deep space service more than 4 months travel time away from our homeworld. 10 years ago, a safe suppressant was developed, and I, of course, am on it now.
It must be a serious sacrifice to give up your reproductive life so totally, even if it's not permanent.
I mean, no, it's not really. As a rule, we have no conscious memory of it. When we're older, it's usually the event that ends our lives. It controls and defines us all our lifetime, more than childbirth dominates humanoid females. We're not considered responsible for our actions, and Nelvanan law defines a stag as an animal, protected from abuse but without any other rights. I spent last summer finishing my A3 computer expert classification rather than trying to fight for the prize of impregnating someone.
I take you at your word that you do not consider this a private or delicate matter. Still, this question is optional. Do you intend to forsake your natural cycle permanently?
No, but I'll return home when my Starfleet career allows it, and it will be on my terms, not my hormones.
It would seem that you have secured a new home for yourself, Mr. Oren. Even if you did it in a rather, shall I say, unorthodox manner.
It's all I've ever wanted and worked for, ma'am.
One last question about your future before we move back. Where and how do you see yourself serving?
I'm trying to burnish my generalist credentials, but I'll probably be assigned as a computer science officer. Oh, an assignment to one of the 12 top vessels, the true starships? That is what I want most.
Your ambitions are not unusual. Success should be well within the scope of probability. You and I are both alien to this world. Therefore, the adjustments you had to make and your reactions to them interest me. Feel free to answer this one, as would the science officer you intend to be.
Ooh, yes, Ensign. Beginning with gravity, the most fundamental of forces, Nelvana is only 92.67% of Earth's standard G. Now, as I'm sure you understand, that meant more than the sudden gain of 8 kilos of weight to my normal mass. I was fortunate that medical allowed me to adapt without the embarrassment and bother of wearing an anti-grav. However, anything I dropped fell at a faster rate than I was used to, so I was terribly clumsy for the first 3 months. My solution to this was tennis. I kept at it until I could beat at least some of my classmates. Overall, the gravity difference has been an even trade. The hills are great for jogging, and the stormy air, well, it reminds me of my home island. My workouts took less time, so I diverted those hours to academics. So I was prepared to endure much for my dream, as you can see, and well, instead I found a second home.
I recommend you share those views with your brethren from your first home. It could ease Fleet's recruiting problem. Your skin and hair are different from other Nelvanans that I've met. So far, they have all been females. Is your black hair and slightly tan complexion a gender trait?
Oh, no, not at all. The does you met were northerners from our continental regions. They're usually fair-skinned, and their hair ranges from red blonde to dark brown. I'm from the other hemisphere, where most of the inhabited areas are chains of islands. We're nearly all black-haired and darker-skinned. Colloquially, they usually refer to us as Southern Black Hairs.
Informative. Now, I would like to ask you about your family. How would you describe that part of your life?
My mother is Nuria, daughter of Kaya. She operates a small hostelry near the beach on the island where we lived. So far, she has had 4 children, all males, of which I am the youngest. My oldest brother is named Olarin. He's 8 years older than I, so as one can imagine, he's more like what you would call an uncle to me. He finished his schooling several years ago and now works short-term jobs all around the island. I always enjoyed hearing him play his woodwind flute. He was good. Lately, he's taken up board surfing. Everyone takes my brothers Morin and Zorin for twins, and it's easy to think of them that way. They are quite a pair. Neither of them is stupid, but even though I'm 3 years their junior, I always help them with their homework. I also spied on them ruthlessly for Mother, and, well, I admit for fun. They work as painters and preservationists now.
You don't mention your father.
All I know is that he was a fertile male. You see, our families are headed and run by our mothers. It's actually considered eccentric and rude to inquire about your sire. If a boy fawn wants to be especially annoying to a male who he roughly resembles, all he has to do is say, "I know who you are," loud enough for the others to hear.
I had not considered this. From what you tell me, you could have fathered children in your 2 previous wrecks.
Yes, ma'am. And it's even more likely that I ate leaves and passed them through my system. It's all the same to me, as I had no real choice about either. I guess it's a matter of acculturation.
Between the family, the educational system, and fleet, there must be a connecting factor. Some sort of mediating institution?
Oh, no, you're going to it by a different angle, but I think I know what you're looking for. The lodges.
Perhaps. Please go on.
See, in the islands, the lodges are just temporary structures, usually one to an island. This is really due to high land costs. In the south, they serve a support function for the rut. In the north, they're also the organizing institution of male life year-round. In fact, if I were a northerner, my name would not carry that of my mother, but instead the name of my lodge.
So, at least in the north, the lodges provide the paternal involvement and support that active fathers provide in other species?
Yeah, that's a fair assumption, ma'am. There should be some sociological studies on file. If not, you did say you were working on a master's degree in xenology?
I suspect, Mr. Oren, that you are trying to be helpful and have eventual academic ambitions of your own. I thank you for the former and obviously respect the latter. It might be an oversimplification, but how do the people of the 2 hemispheric cultures see each other?
Please excuse. How we see them? Let's see, stiff, cold, dull, ambitious, and overwhelmingly powerful. They're the real Nelvanans as far as the rest of the universe is concerned. We're only a small minority carried along for the ride. How they see us was not kept a secret from me. My college was in a continental area. We are as lazy as we can get away with, emotional, almost to the point of being children, socially backward, bratty, legendarily oversexed. On the other side, we are usually considered caring, helpful, and sufficiently necessary to the well-being of our world that ourselves and culture must be preserved.
How do you believe you are seen?
Well, that all depends. As my human friends say, on the eye of the beholder. Here at the Academy, I am seen as an ambitious young go-getter. At college, I had to come up from the south right after my first rut. I showed up for classes, having not yet shed my antler horns.
Antler horns, grown and shed annually by males as a consequence of the Nalvanan breeding cycle.
Or lost the muscular bulk I still had from natural steroids. I was there to study, but to my fellow collegians, it looked more like mate or kill. At least it covered for my only being 14 for a while. At home, I was my mother's baby, and I wasn't shy about making the most of it. For my 2 brothers sharing the home, I was such a homework aide that I kept growling the school should pay me. I was a tattletale, forceful tag-along, and when angry, a micro-predator, according to Morin. Jeez, I hope they can forgive me. I'm sorry, I started to drift there.
That question often leads to introspection and distraction. Perhaps a break is in order.
Actually, I usually come here for their ice cream sundae. So you wouldn't be able to,
Affirmative. I was given a budget for such expenses. I keyed my credit voucher into the tabletop ordering panel. Declining Mr. Oren's invitation to join him, I instead used the time to review our recordings and notes. I have restarted the recording. Mr. Oren, are you sufficiently refreshed to continue?
I am indeed, Ensign. And thank you.
I believe I have nearly enough material. You've expressed positive views on your service in Starfleet. Is there any way you would care to elaborate on that? Perhaps encapsulate?
Yes, there is. I haven't told any of my classmates what I would like to share with you now. I have not embarked on a career normal to my people. I won't be beaming down from a space station in time to clean a room before dinner. The strength of the bond I aspire to is a lot more like the Northern Bucks and their lodges. When I graduate from the Academy and enter active service, my name will be Oren of Starfleet. My will specifies that if any misfortune takes my life before then, my death will be registered under that name.
Mr. Oren, xenologists are known to be generous to a fault with their observations. I offer this. You have not made an emotional choice, but a profound and logical one that confers great honor on our chosen profession. As an emotional being, your reaction makes sense and does not offend.
Well, Kenneth Kezan Hakal.
Classical Vulcan. My superior honors me. The Vulcan language is no easy study.
My ulterior motive is the Vulcan Science Academy Journal of Programming.
As Surak said, the cause is sufficient. I believe that concludes my questioning. Do you have anything to ask or place on the record?
Well, having studied at the Academy here by the Bay and now the Fleet Graduate Facility, how do the experiences compare? I mean, purely by subjective standard.
I understand your interest, but I would urge you not to forget to make an application to the Daystrom Institute when the time is appropriate. The Norfolk area is less stormy than here. It is almost sufficiently warm in the summer, but it remains far too humid for my comfort. My colleagues and faculty contribute each according to their own gifts, but it is overall quite stimulating.
Thank you. Truly. Live long and prosper, Zara of Vulcan.
Long life and prosperity to you, son of Nuria, Oren of Starfleet.
File copies transmitted. Review group scheduled pending.